Hey, Slider Crusaders, America's the greatest country in the world. Welcome to our pre-debate coverage and pre-Donald Trump Tucker Carlson interview coverage. We have great guests coming up. Sean Spicer is going to be here. Congressman Chip Roy, who supports Ron DeSantis. Carrie Lake, who supports Donald Trump. And Chadwick Moore is going to be here. He just wrote a book called Tucker about Tucker Carlson. We'll talk about Tucker and Trump in that big interview. Of course, the big story tonight is no Trump. Why is there no Trump? Because of this reality right here. And as we play this clip, see if you can hear the sigh that the CNN anchor gives in the background.
Trump's lead is even larger. So these are three polls that were out over the last week. Look at these leads for Donald Trump. He's at 62% of the CBS News YouGov poll, 57% in Quinnipiac University, 53% in the Fox News poll. Look at where DeSantis is in all these polls. Look how far back he is. He doesn't crack 20% in any of them. So in Iowa, you have that 20-plus point lead for Donald Trump. That's actually smaller than the lead we see nationally, where we see these leads of 35, 40, near 50 points in this particular case.
That's why he's not debating. Listen, I've always been of the school of thought that you should never be afraid to debate anytime, anywhere, with anybody. You should be willing to defend your ideas and your record at Berkeley. And you certainly should be willing to share them at a Republican debate. I've always had that opinion. But I think that's true when you're like 10 points ahead and you get a bunch of people nipping at your heels. You should probably go to a debate and solidify your lead. When you're 60 points ahead of the rest of the field, I don't know if we need to engage with everyone who's at 1%. Now, that's where I've been. I noticed on Drudge Report that 73% of Republicans think that Donald Trump should debate. I saw that survey the other day. I was like, wow, 73%. So on my radio show on SiriusXM Patriot, I asked people to make their best argument as to why you think Donald Trump should debate. And it was all Trump supporters who called in, right? No one called in and was like, oh, Trump's a coward. It wasn't that. It was people who want what's best for Trump. And they're making an argument as to why they want to see Trump debate. And I thought they gave some really great answers. And I'm going to ask Carrie Lake about these a little later in the show and see what her and his response would be. So the first reason why you should debate is it's an opportunity for him to get there in front of everyone and call out the people who betrayed him. Be like, hey, Mikey, hey, Pence, remember that time when I said we needed to put a tariff on China and you said no and we did it and I was right and you were wrong? Remember that? Hey, sloppy Chris, remember when I asked you who would be a good FBI director and you came up with Chris Wray? Remember that? And just go down the line and be like, Doug, I don't know who you are at all, but whatever. And then just go down the line and call them all out. The second reason why it'd be good is because all the guns would be focused towards Trump, obviously, if he were up there, which would make him look like the outsider again. And that was the status that really was great for him, obviously, and true in 2016, that he is this outsider who's coming in to break up the system. And if all these other rhinos are standing here attacking me, that means I'm the outsider. They're scared of me, which means they're scared of you. So you need to vote for me. I think that would be an effective approach. And then another common argument as to why he should debate is it's just be done with it. Like, just give the knockout blow, end it right now. Make it like why are we doing this whole charade? Like, clearly I'm the guy. Make everyone look ridiculous and just give the knockout blow and we can end the whole rigmarole that is this whole rest of the charade, right? Now, some would argue, well, he already is that far ahead and it is already over, but enough people still think that it's not, that we're still doing this. So I thought those are pretty good arguments. Instead, he went what's probably the sensible, it's definitely the safe route, but it's probably the sensible move as well. Do the interview with Tucker. It's already recorded, right? It's going to start at the same time the debate is going on, which is a great blank you to Fox News as well from Tucker Carlson. But more people are going to be talking about probably the Trump interview than the debate. And then even more people are going to be talking about Trump turning himself in at the Fulton County Jail on Thursday and sucking all the oxygen out of the room yet again. Trump is a master of courting attention. Now, we're going to talk later about the candidates with our guests, but I feel like I have to make this point about debates in general. I'm going to watch it, and then we'll comment on it. We'll do the whole thing, and we have to, right? We'll do it all. But I also want to acknowledge that these debates are insulting, and I actually despise them from the core of my being. Neil Postman was a brilliant man. He passed away in 2003. He wrote a lot of books. The most relevant one here is called Amusing Ourselves to Death. Public Discourse in the Age of Show Business. I give it my highest recommendation. One of the arguments he makes is that we used to be an extremely literate society. Colonial America, early 1700s, he says the colonial Americans were as committed to the printed word as any group of people who have ever lived. Literacy rates. What do you think the literacy rate was for men in the year 1700? It was 89 to 95%. One of the highest concentrations of literate males anywhere in the world. The literacy rate for women was 62%. And for comparison, the literacy rate of adult men in England was less than 40. And we had 95% of literacy. Now, how about this fact that'll blow your mind? What percent of adults are literate in America today? What percent of adults are literate today? Only 79%. In 1700 America, more adults were literate. Now maybe you're thinking, well, Slater, that's actually higher than I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say maybe like 50%. Well, literate's actually a pretty low bar. How about this? Only 54% of adults can read at a 6th grade reading level. That means there are 130 million Americans who can't read a newspaper. Most newspapers are at the 11th grade reading level. 130 million Americans can't read the newspaper. I think this is the biggest problem in America that we're totally, completely not aware of. Most Americans can't read. And in colonial times, everyone could read, which means we used to be able to engage in deeper political discussions with the written word. But now no one can read. So instead, we do it on the TV. And with TV, it's very different than reading. TV is all about images. This is why electing candidates for the highest office in the world went from who do I agree with, who has the best policy, to who do I like. With TV, it's not about information, it's about entertainment. Politicians also, they put on a performance, right? It's all about, tonight's gonna be all about who can give the best zingers. Like they've been rehearsed, like Chris Christie knows his whole bit. He's got his whole bit rehearsed 100 times over. He knows exactly what he's going to do, when he's going to do it, about Trump. The whole thing's memorized. It's just a performance art. So he's going to get in a couple zingers, and then we'll see which gets the most views on Twitter. For example, who can ever forget this completely off-the-cuff remark from Hillary back in 2016. And
the kind of plan that Donald has put forth would be trickle-down economics all over again. In fact, it would be the most extreme version, the biggest tax cuts for the top percents of the people in this country than we've ever had. I call it trumped up trickle down because that's exactly what it would be.
Oh, trumped up trickle down. Wow, she thought of that right on the spot. I despise the debate format. It crushes my soul. We should all be insulted by it. Here's Neil Postman talking about it.
Now, who can take that seriously? If Reagan and Mondale were serious men, in fact, they would turn to Miss Walters and say, what kind of men do you think we are? We're running for the highest office in the land. You can't answer a question like this in 2 minutes, nor can you rebut someone else's answer in 60 seconds. Or they might turn to Miss Walters and say, what kind of people do you think the American public is? That they will put up with a forum in which candidates for the presidency are asked to respond to a question like this in 2 minutes or 1 minute. But in fact, none of that ever happens. Reagan does answer, and Mondale does give his rebuttal, and everyone goes on with this charade that television is informing the public. In fact, television, I would argue, is not. It's amusing the public, and that this is not a legitimate form of political discourse, but is taken right from the values of show business.
That interview was 1987, and he said every candidate gets 2 minutes with a 1 minute rebuttal. Today it's you get 1 minute with a 30-second rebuttal. The goal of a TV debate is to amuse, not to inform. I'm not amused by them either. That's why I look forward to the Tucker Trump interview. I think it'll be more amusing and it'll be much more informative. But no matter what happens tonight, and I'm here for it, but no matter what happens tonight, the best thing that will come out of the week is going to be the Trump mugshot t-shirt that's going to come out of Atlanta on Thursday. Now, keep all this in mind as we do tonight, that this is the end of that CNN clip that we opened up with. Here are the latest Trump numbers versus Biden in the general election.
No clear leader. Look at these. 1 point, 1 point. If you go back at where we were at this point 4 years ago, Joe Biden's lead was high single digits to low double digits. This is significantly closer than where we were 4 years ago. So this idea that Donald Trump can't win the general election, I want you to lose that idea. This race is very, very close, and Donald Trump is polling better right now than basically at any point during the entire 2020 cycle.
After 4 indictments.
After 4 indictments. It just doesn't really seem to matter.
Yes, CNN. Still, after 4 politically motivated indictments, it still doesn't matter. They'll never get it. Coming up, Carrie Lake, Chip Roy, and next, Sean Spicer, right here on the First TV.
The government is too big and we need to reduce its size.
I've fired underperformers in the private sector. I'm going to do it for probably 75% of the people who work as federal bureaucrats.
I want people to understand that conservatism works. It doesn't work for the rich, it doesn't work for the poor, it doesn't work for the black, it doesn't work for the white. It works for America.
You know, I always stood loyally by President Donald Trump until my oath to the Constitution required me to do otherwise.
And we haven't had a president, in my view, since 2008 who's actually known what they're doing.
Look, I think that President Trump was the right president at the right time. I agree with so many of his policies. But at the end of the day, we have to win in November. And it is time to put that negativity and drama behind us.
Those are clips from The Gathering. It was a forum right here on the First TV hosted by Eric Erickson. I want to go right to Sean Spicer, host of The Sean Spicer Show, also right here on the First, 6 p.m. Eastern every single day. And you go to SeanSpicerShow.com, subscribe, listen to the audio, and all the rest. What's going on, Sean?
Not much. It's a busy day here in Milwaukee. I'm here day 3, but this is the big night. It's electric here, man. I put the debates together in 2015, all of them, and I haven't seen this kind of electricity in like 8 years. And it's exciting to walk down the streets of Milwaukee to see the number of people here. And it's not just Mike. It's not just the journalists and there are foreigners that have come over here to be part of this, both journalists and observers. This is the Super Bowl of politics right now.
Yeah. What do you mean you put together the debates in 2015? What role would a campaign have?
So look, this is why, and I brought it up. I'm going to talk about it tonight on the Sean Spicer Show. But prior to 2015, no political party had ever controlled their own primary process debates. Literally, media organizations would just pop them up, and it would happen. And after 2012, I said to Reince Priebus, the chairman, this is insane. The idea that the national party is asking for tickets to attend a debate deciding who its nominee will be. And so I asked if I stick around for another cycle, can I lead the effort to take over these things? And we did. We literally had a process where media organizations came in, bid on hosting a sanctioned debate. We put out a predictable schedule. The 2 most important aspects of any campaign are time and money. And as I said, these candidates, the previous cycles were just being told there's a debate next Tuesday. There's one in Iowa. There's one in New Hampshire. There's one in Arizona. And I said, this is insane. I've been doing campaigns for 30 years. You don't run like this. You know when they are. They should be predictable. So we created a 12-month or August to March schedule and said this is when the debates are, this is where they are, and this is who's hosting them. And every candidate could plan around them.
Of course, that makes perfect sense. But even big picture, it makes perfect sense to have the Republican Party in charge of the Republican Party primaries in every single way, and not NBC News having a role in it. Would you, exactly. if you were sitting across from Donald Trump, would you have recommended that he participate tonight?
No. I think, look, he has a 40, 50-point lead. It's not just Donald Trump. If any other candidate had a 40 or a 50-point lead and had twice been the nominee, I would say, look, why stand on stage with people that need name tags? I mean, the reality is that, think about it. If this was a boxing match, you would never let the current belt holder go fight the guy that just got in the ring, walked in the gym. Let these guys, this isn't the only debate. And it's not a binary choice. We lost 3-4 candidates that didn't make the stage this time. I believe that there'll be a couple more that'll drop out in the next month because they're going to lose money and support. And so once it becomes a case of 3 or 4 candidates, then yeah, he needs to make the case. But right now, it's demeaning, and it's a waste of his time to come here. Remember, right now we got 8 candidates spread across 2 hours. Take out commercials. They're at an average of like 2 minutes and 42 seconds apiece. You think Donald Trump needs to win us over with a bunch of sound bites? He was president for 4 years. He was the nominee twice before. I think we're pretty clear what his agenda is and where he stands, which is the goal of these debates. And most of the people up there worked for him at some point, so we know their record.
Yeah. Tell me about Martha McCallum and Brett Baer. What do we need to know about the moderators and Fox's role in general?
It's a great question that you're asking. We know them both, right? They both are Fox News anchors. I think the question that you're getting at, Mike, which is the right one, which is how do they allocate their time? If this debate turns out to them spending half of it talking about Donald Trump, it'll show that Fox is just concerned about a bunch of ratings and that this is not really the goal of what a primary debate should be, which is to help voters make an informed decision about who they want to support as the nominee of the party. I think how much time they spend on Donald Trump, how much time they spend on contrasting with Joe Biden, and how much time they give them to answer questions about themselves will be indicative of what Fox News believes their role is.
How can someone, we just did the last segment talking about how these debates are meant to amuse and not to inform, and they're so contrived and rehearsed, and Chris Christie knows his whole bit that he's going to give and whatever. I'm sure Mike Pence, it'll be so prepackaged. They're so hard to watch for me. They're so inauthentic. How can someone be authentic in such a packaged, TV, it's such like a fake environment? How can you be authentic in it?
It's funny you brought that up. I was talking to Governor Scott Walker about this morning, and he said in 2015 that he was so rehearsed that that was one of his big regrets from the debates. I think you're right though, is that people see through it. And if you get up there and it looks like a stand-up routine where you're like, hey guys, I da-da-da-da-da, people are going to see right through that.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you being there in Milwaukee. Sean, host of the Sean Spicer Show, right here on the first 6 p.m. Eastern every single day. Coming up next, Congressman Chip Roy came out early for Ron DeSantis. Ooh, does he regret that? We'll talk with the congressman next, right here on the first.
It is what it is, and I think everyone should debate. If you qualify, I think you owe it to the people to put out your vision, to talk about your record, answer questions about your record and decisions that you may have made or not made. And if you're not willing to do that, then I think that people are not going to look kindly on that.
Congressman Chip Roy from Texas is here. He is a Ron DeSantis supporter and surrogate. Congressman, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Great to be on. Greetings from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where it's at least a little cooler than it is in Texas.
That's good. You're a little respite at least. Is Donald Trump a coward for not debating tonight, Congressman?
Well, I don't engage in those kinds of kind of pejoratives. I mean, I certainly don't pass out bingo cards with silly quips on them as some in the Trump world are doing up here. The American people, they want seriousness. They want to see leadership. They're seeing that out of Governor DeSantis. Governor DeSantis is here, and I think that speaks for itself.
Are you disappointed at the DeSantis campaign and their clearly a lack of polling results that other DeSantis supporters were hoping for?
Well, this is not my first rodeo. It's not his. I mean, I was with Senator Cruz, and he wasn't even polling at these numbers when he went on to win Iowa. We've seen lots of movement in presidential elections in the past. Governor DeSantis still has very strong numbers. The fact is the entire world, including Team Trump and all of these sort of, nattering nabobs, if you will, that are out there kind of chasing him, and the rest of the field, they're all taking shots. And you've got a massive earned media advantage, a whole bunch of folks at Fox who want to kind of keep the train going. So, look, I think what you're seeing is a strong candidate who is going to have an opportunity tonight to demonstrate to a large segment of the American people why they should want what we're seeing in Florida happen for the entire country. Because Florida is getting the job done because of him, and we need that kind of leadership for the country.
My last question about you, and then we'll get to the big picture stuff. I'm worried about you, Congressman, because Donald Trump doesn't just beat his opponents. He salts the ground that they live. Like, he just, like, the Bush legacy is gone. He, like, you know what I mean? So I'm worried that maybe you picked the wrong horse too early. Are you worried that you picked the wrong horse too early? And Donald Trump won't forget it, Congressman.
The great thing about this country is we put our faith in principles, not in princes. This country was founded on that notion. Governor DeSantis believes that. I'm a big fan and supporter of the America First agenda. I have been happy to work with President Trump in the past, be happy to work with him again in the future. But right now, I think our country needs to look forward. I'm not afraid to say it. Governor DeSantis' track record is extraordinary. We shouldn't be hanging on with bated breath, hoping to come up with a few votes in Maricopa or in Fulton County. We ought to win with a mandate, the kind of mandate that we saw Governor DeSantis win with in Florida, with 1.5 million votes, with 62% of Hispanic voters, with 50% of single female voters, all built on the back of someone who took on Disney, took on the woke establishment, took on the elite liberals who are killing hardworking families and small businesses, stood up in defense of guns, stood up in defense of life, stood up in defense of a free market and creating jobs and growth, stood up for a strong border, sent National Guard to Texas. I mean, his track record is extraordinary. It is only in the world of, this kind of inside beltway nonsense and, handing out bingo cards that we're not praising Governor DeSantis and having an honest, straight up debate on the issue.
Real quick, it's the second time you brought up the bingo cards. Did I see right that it was a one Marjorie Taylor Greene who put out a bingo card? Is that what you're referring to?
Oh, I don't know if she did or not. I mean, Marjorie's a friend and everybody, we're going to do what they're going to do. But no, we've just seen them floating around out here. And it's just more of the same. And look, I'm just going to tell you, the American people, the constituents I represent, they're tired of all that garbage. They want to see results. They want to see a wall completed, a border secure, an economy back in motion in the right direction. They want to actually see an end to Fauciism. And we saw DeSantis fight it, and we saw President Trump give Fauci a medal. Look, the record is what it is. And, there's a lot of candidates who are going to say a lot of words tonight. They're going to stick stuff into Chat GPT, and it's going to spit out what they should say to voters. There's one guy, one candidate who has a track record of success fighting every issue we believe in as conservative. Border, security, guns, life, economy, standing up against wokeism. Not just standing up against wokeism, bleeding for it, fighting Disney, fighting the education establishment, taking on the teachers' unions, standing up for parents against radical school boards. He's done it. He fired 2 Soros prosecutors. He's not just whining about this stuff. He's doing it. That's the kind of guy we need.
So I got to come at you like a Trump supporter, all right? We'll do a little devil's advocate. Sure, with you, but Trump is so already obviously clearly the guy for those things. He will get the base out there. He'll get people riled up. DeSantis, you're not going to get it. You're not excited to vote for DeSantis. Sure, maybe he does these things, but you need the excitement that comes with a Donald Trump.
Look, all I know is there was a hell of a lot of excitement that resulted in a 1.5 million vote landslide in Florida. Governor DeSantis has proven it. Unfortunately, President Trump has not been able to get there. And look, I'm just going to ask you or any of the listeners, would you go take all of your belongings, your worldly possessions, and go put them all down? Straight up or down question, will President Trump be able to win the election, the general election in 2024? Because I can tell you, I put a lot of stock and faith that if we nominate Ron DeSantis, he's going to wipe the floor with Joe Biden and any Democrat candidate they choose to put up, because he's a strong candidate with a proven track record who can serve 8 years and take this country forward. So I'm not afraid of anything. And by the way, like I said, DeSantis is here. He's here for the debate. I don't see former President Trump.
Listen, this is the hardest part of this whole campaign for these guys. And I don't know what the historical precedent for this is, but DeSantis needs to appeal, or at least not alienate Trump supporters, right? Because there are a lot of them.
Sure.
There's 67. So you have to say you're a better version of Trump without alienating a Trump supporter. That is a tough line to walk on. What do you think?
Well, so my way of doing that, and look, and I have to walk that line too. I have a lot of Trump supporters in the district I represent, and I love them. They're big supporters of mine. We can agree to disagree on a primary fight moving forward. Byron Donald's a good friend of mine that's endorsing, President Trump. We agree to disagree. We can spar over that. That's fine. But what I want is someone who can just espouse the principles that are going to carry this country forward. And here's the critical part: win. I want to see us win again. This country desperately needs to win again. It's not enough for us to sit back and complain about DOJ, complain about an open border. Look, it wasn't Governor DeSantis who saddled up with Paul Ryan to try to advance a crappy border security bill and have it die in 2018. Governor DeSantis was fighting that. And then Team Trump, the same Team Trump who's here in Milwaukee, gathering with a bunch of liberal media and steakhouses, sitting there like passing out the bingo cards again, they're all sitting around trying to stir the pot. But it was that team that was saddling up with Paul Ryan and not actually getting that done. And then they dare try to say that Ron DeSantis didn't support the wall because he opposed the garbage bill and supported the good bill. That's the kind of crap the American people are tired of. We have the receipts. We know what's going on in the swamp. Governor DeSantis has been fighting it, whether he's in the Freedom Caucus or the governor of Florida. So he's the right guy.
Vivek seems like the only guy who's actually increasing in the polls right now. Why do you think he's gotten so much appeal?
Well, look, he says a lot of the right stuff, but what the hell has he ever done? I mean, I know he's got, a lot of success in the business world, but, you go out and you start popping off on foreign policy and suddenly you say, oh, yeah, we should have equal support of all of the countries in the Middle East, and you just crap all over Israel, right? You suddenly say that if we can get our chip manufacturing in place by 2028, we abandon Taiwan. A couple of years ago, you were out trying to profit on vaccines. You were trying to push back mask mandates, and not just because you were the governor trying to deal with what Fauci was shoving down your throat, but because you were just out there chattering about it. You're out there promoting Soros. Look, I love a lot of the things that he says. His list, when he talks about that there is a God and that there is man and woman, 100% agree. And I love that he's a voice for those things. But you know what? Again, one guy has done something on every single one of the things in Vivek's lists. That guy is Governor DeSantis. It sure as hell isn't Vivek.
Do you think Vivek and the Donald Trump campaign are colluding with each other?
Those things are the conspiracy things that you guys in the media can go figure out. I like Vivek. He's out there saying a lot of stuff that I want to be said, but now it's time for game time. Someone needs to sit behind the Resolute desk that you can trust to get it done. One guy can do that, and that's DeSantis.
So I think it was Trump interviewed, it was either Hannity, I think it was Matt Boyle, did an interview with Trump. And he was asked why DeSantis is a loser and not winning, right? And he said he's got no personality. Now, as per our opening segment of the show today, I lament that debates are a show to amuse people and entertain as opposed to inform like they should be. But that is the reality of where we are right now. No one's more entertaining than Trump. So how does DeSantis get over this lack of personality problem that Trump says is the root of his lack of appeal?
Well, first of all, I know the governor. He's a friend. He's got a great personality. We sit around talking about life and kids and baseball and faith and all the things that we share in common. And he's great to talk to. But, at the end of the day, the American people want leadership. This idea is that, well, you got to be able to sit down and have a beer with him. It's like, okay, yeah. I don't mind sitting down and having a beer with the governor. But the American people just want a president who's going to lead the country forward. And of course, the former president calls him a loser. That's the kind of thing he resorts to. But Governor DeSantis was a big winner when he went out and he forego, going to the private market and instead wore the uniform to go to Afghanistan and defend this country. That was not being a loser. He was not a loser when he ran for Congress and won. He wasn't a loser when he helped found the Freedom Caucus. He wasn't a loser when he ran for governor. And okay, if the president helped him in 2018, great. That was his damn job. He wasn't a loser when he wiped the floor with Democrats and won by 1.5 million votes. He wasn't a loser when he transformed the legislature in Florida. He wasn't a loser that caused us to get in trouble in the national elections in 2020, 2022, and the issues we had in Georgia. So, all right, you want to throw around terms like losers? Let's just compare the results. And you know how you best do that? Show up to the debate.
Congressman Chip Roy, appreciate you, sir.
Hey, thanks, man. Great to be on.
Have a great day. Carrie Lake coming up next. She's a Donald Trump supporter. We'll get her take next. Mike Slater, spread the word.
When you're leading by 50 and 60 points against these people, and you have people at 0 and 1 and 2, and then they're going to be asking me hostile questions, and they probably won't have much of an audience if I'm not in the debates, according to what I read. If I'm not in the debates, they're not going to have a very big audience. It seems almost like it would be foolish to do them.
Yeah, welcome back to our debate preview. Everything there Trump said is, of course, true, but I want to bring in Carrie Lake. She ran, of course, for governor of Arizona. Now she's dedicated to fighting for election integrity and is a Donald Trump surrogate to play devil's advocate. Ms. Lake, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Nice to be with you, Mike.
Yes, so of course Trump's ahead by 50, 60 points. Of course we understand why he's not debating, but I saw a poll on Drudge Report that 73% of Republicans think he should debate. And I was really curious about that. So on my SiriusXM show, I opened it up to the audience. Why should Trump debate? And all Trump supporters called in. And there were a lot of reasons they gave, and I thought they were pretty compelling. And I want to run them by you. The first one is, he could just end this now. Just let him debate, do a knockout blow. Any doubters, anyone on the fence will just know once and for all that, of course, Donald Trump is the guy. Just end this whole thing right now, first debate, be done with it. What do you say?
Well, I think, we want to see him debate because it's fun to watch President Trump debate. I think, in my opinion, he's one of the best debaters we've ever seen. And I don't believe he has any debating experience prior to running for office. He just speaks the truth, and that's always the best in a debate. But listen, he is 54 points up in the Real Clear Politics average. He's running against a bunch of people who have no chance in hell to win. And why would he go and give Fox the ratings? Fox has already decided they're never Trumpers. They're anybody but Trump. Why would he go and give them the ratings? He's already proven himself. I mean, you go onto a debate stage as a job interview, but he's already had the job. He's held it. He's proven himself to the American people that he will put America first. He built 500 miles of border wall. We were ending endless wars, finding peace in the Middle East with the Abraham Accords. We were respecting law and order. Our police officers were treated better. Our economy was thriving under President Trump. We had the lowest level of unemployment in my lifetime. And so I think people know that President Trump can do the job. He's kind of the Babe Ruth of politics, and there's no sense in him going to play t-ball with these little leaguers. So this argument is, yes, and even these Trump supporters agree with you on all those things, but Trump's at 65% support. So just go into the debate, crush Doug Burgum and all these other people, and let's just, we're done now. And then he'll get 80% support and we can be done with the whole charade moving forward. Why not just be done with it? I think he's going to crush him tonight anyway. I mean, first of all, I've done probably 20 interviews about the debate. No one's ever asked me about Doug Burgum. They only ask about Trump. So that already tells me he's the winner in the hearts and minds of the people. But he is going to do something even better. I call this master trolling. He is going to go on with the greatest conservative journalist of our time, Tucker Carlson, and do an interview tonight that's going to air, I believe, about the same time. I mean, talk about trolling. He's trolling Fox, who fired Tucker Carlson, has become kind of the neocon globalist network, pushing aside their desire to be America first. And he's going to crush them by talking about the two people that Fox seems to hate most. It's going to be all Tucker and all Trump tonight. And so I think he's already won. I think that's a knockout blow. Okay, and here's another argument I heard. Mike, he will be able to talk about substance with Tucker. Tucker's not an easy interview, but he'll be able to talk about Agenda 47, which is his transformative policy plan to get us back on track. On his website, donaldjtrump.com, you can find his policy in detail. On these other guys, you mentioned a few of them, all you see is a big red donate button with no policy or very little policy.
Yeah, we talked in the opening segment, we talked about how TV debates are designed to amuse, not to inform. Tucker's interview will be way more informative. All right, here's one more argument that people said. They said, this is a great opportunity if Trump debated to go in front of everyone and just humiliate all the people who stabbed him in the back. So be like, hey, Mikey, remember when I said we should do this and you said no and we did it anyway and I was right? Remember that, Pence? Hey, Chris Christie, remember when you said we should nominate Chris Wray as the FBI director? You remember that? Remember how wrong you were about that, bub? And just embarrass everyone up there. What an opportunity to do that. And he's missing it. What do you say?
Oh, it would be fun to watch. I know that. But let me tell you, with these bogus indictments coming at him, including this one that's just so outrageous out of Georgia, where they've said he can't intimidate witnesses, if he would even talk to Mike Pence on stage, they could somehow, and you know they would, try to twist that into him intimidating a potential witness. And you know Brett Baier is going to try to do gotcha to corner him into possibly hurting himself in one of these witch hunt cases. If I were his attorney, I would say don't do it. But he doesn't need to do it, is the main point. He's already proven himself to the American people. He is up so high in the polls. I don't think we've ever seen somebody running for office in the presidential politics who's been up this much over the other contenders, if you even want to call them contenders. So, like I said, why would he go sit at the kids' table at Thanksgiving when he's already sat at the biggest table in the world, when he was steering this country in the right direction and getting us back on solid footing on a world stage?
Carrie Lake, let's do a special one day, and we'll have you back on. We'll talk about the Republicans' efforts to shore up the voting. But until then, good luck tonight.
Thank you so much, Mike, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, ma'am. Carrie mentioned a minute ago the interview, of course, with Tucker Carlson. I want to go right to Chadwick Moore, who's the author of the new book, Tucker, and he's a contributing editor at The Spectator. Chadwick, how you doing, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
I think the best storyline of this whole night is not only Donald Trump's blank you to the Republican Party, but Tucker Carlson's blank you to Fox News. So do you have any predictions on ratings success that we're going to see tonight?
Well, the thing about this is people can always, if they wanted to watch that thing that's happening on Fox, they can always watch the Tucker later because it will be there. But, the hatred and the feeling of betrayal and anger at Fox News is still there for millions of people who are Tucker fans. They're certainly not going to be tuning in. I think the only person who wins in this situation is the 8 or 9, however many candidates are going to be on that network tonight, because obviously before it was a setup, it was meant for everyone to take pot shots at President Trump and for Fox to try to elevate another candidate because they obviously don't prefer Trump. I guess the winner here is that everyone on that stage has a chance to maybe not talk about Trump if they can resist it and actually sell their vision for America if they have one. Chris Christie probably won't be able to do that. But that would be it. Then again, I don't know if anyone's going to be talking about this, especially the next day, considering Trump's being arraigned in Georgia the next day. All the cameras are going to be focused on that.
Classic Trump to control the narrative every single day, suck the oxygen out of the room. He's doing it tonight, and he'll do it again tomorrow as well. You mentioned this, and I've been thinking about this. The best thing I think for the candidates to do is to not even mention Trump. Just pretend like he dropped out of the race already and try to do the best you can as the guy to take over his mantle. But like you said, I don't think they'll have the ability to do that. Let's talk about Tucker here for a minute. What do you think Tucker thinks his role is in this whole election moving forward? Now that he's off the big network, what can he do? What role can he play?
Well, I think that what Tucker is the figurehead of independent media eclipsing mainstream media. And I think that this Republican primary cycle is exactly when this is happening. It's occurred. Mainstream media is playing catch up to what's happening on independent media and on social media. And Trump refusing to do this debate is certainly a huge part of that. Tucker's breaking news constantly on Twitter or X. And mainstream media is being forced to report on it, except for Fox, because they're not allowed to mention his name. They have to pretend that he never existed. So I think that's mainly his role. I don't think he sees himself that way. Tucker doesn't like language that, where he's like some sort of leader or standard bearer, even though he is. He probably sees himself as, as I got to know him really well in writing this book, he sees himself as simply someone who asks questions, someone who's deeply curious, and who puts together information to create a story and to present that story. I think that's how he sees himself, but he's certainly a figurehead of this independent media totally taking over from mainstream media.
Yeah, and this is the election that it happens. I'm certain of that. Very fascinating that Fox News Fox News has to pretend like Tucker Carlson doesn't exist. And I remember hearing that they were very frustrated when Tucker hosted that candidate forum a couple weeks ago, and Fox News couldn't use any of the footage of it because he's like in Fox exile, which is just great. So they can't use any of this Trump footage that's going to happen tonight. They can't use any of it in their news.
So of course they could use it. They legally can use it if they wanted to, but they're forbidden as company policy. You know, he's like Voldemort. He should not be named.
Yes.
Tucker, I mean, every time someone leaves Fox, they do this to that person. They pretend that they never worked there and never existed. They scrub them from photographs. They scrub them from any mention. So Tucker is especially very special in this situation because he's poking the bear. So if Trump breaks news tonight on the interview with Tucker, Fox cannot mention it. They will not mention it. One host did, I believe it was Jesse Waters, did report on something Tucker did. Couldn't mention his name, couldn't show the video, could only read a transcript of, I believe it was an interview with Devin Archer that Tucker did.
Wow, which just further isolates Fox News into oblivion even more, that they can't focus on a thing that obviously 100 million people are going to watch and be commenting on, and Fox News chooses not to be part of that conversation. That's amazing. Last question for you real quick, Chadwick. What is the benefit to the American people and to the democratic process, you think, of an hour-long interview with Tucker versus this silly made-for-TV debate show that we do where you got 30-second rebuttal, 15-second response? Why is talking to Tucker better for America?
Well, you know, I don't know if necessarily that particular sit down, but I think the culture that it's exposing and the kind of the direction we're moving is where it's better for America. It's rejecting this sort of corporate, sterile, polished environment to learn about our candidates and going more independent, more one-on-one. I think everyone benefits from that. It's not just, these moderators for this multinational globalist corporation deciding what the questions are and who to attack and who to elevate. I mean, everyone wins when we start pushing out all this money and interest in our politics and start getting people who are being real and trying to speak more directly to the American people.
Absolutely. Chadwick Moore, go buy the book. Tucker. And he's also at the Spectator. Chadwick, appreciate you, man.
Oh, thanks, man.
Have a wonderful day. All right, it is debate time, or is it Donald Trump on Tucker time? Who do you trust more? Martha McCallum and Brett Baer or Tucker Carlson? And who are you going to watch first? We're grateful you're here, right here on the First TV. Spread the word.